will you endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God? I do. You, David King, solemnly swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of member of the Board of Trustees of Asheville-Buncombe Technical Community College according to the best of your skill and ability and according to law, so help you God? I will. Congratulations. Thank you. Well done. All right. Got it? Congratulations. So, thank you.
Congratulations, David.
Thank you. Ms. Teresa's talking from the PJ. Congratulations.
Okay, next item on the agenda is consent agenda that was sent out electronically ahead of time. Hope everybody's had a chance to read the consent agenda. Any questions from any of the board members about the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, we got to call roll call.
Yes.
Government.
Ms. Bay?
Yes.
Mr. Rickman? We have to call roll call because we have virtual. Mr. Brummett?
Yes.
Premier?
Yes.
Here. Ms. Lewis? Dr. Metcalf?
Here, yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Ms. Ray? Yes. Motion passes.
Resolutions and action items. A. Wilmot, you're on board.
This is somewhat of a formality, but not one without some substance. And that is, we are involved regularly with providing educational opportunities to our high school students in our three local education authorities in our service area. That's Asheville City Schools, Buncombe County Schools, and Madison County Schools. And it's been several years since the board has reaffirmed its commitment to the articulation agreements, which are fairly substantial and lengthy. So I'm not including those, but we do need to have a resolution or motion by the trustees to accept these articulation resolutions effective today. And that will go on the record as you're having to be on board with those. Any questions?
There are no questions. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the joint resolution. So move that we do so. The second. Second. Moved and seconded that we approve the joint resolution with Asheville City Schools, Buncombe County Schools, and Madison County Schools. Any questions? All in favor? Roll call.
Ms. Bay?
Yes.
Mr. Rickman?
Yes.
Mr. Brummett?
Yes.
Premier?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Dr. Metcalf?
Yes.
Dr. Farah?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
On the resolutions and action items, B, Dr. Stewart, I believe you're.
Good afternoon, everyone. I must say it's good to actually see you all in person because it's true that the camera does put 10 pounds on you. So to those of you on the camera, I am really thinner. So I have two items I'm going to speak to you today. We are in the process of instructional services of reviewing all of the policies within our unit for three things. One, to clean up language. Two, to make sure that they are current. And three, to review them for equity. And I will talk about that at length at a future meeting. But today I have two policies to bring before you, two policy changes. The first one is on academic freedom. which you know is a cornerstone of everything that we do at AV Tech, much like at all colleges and universities across the country. Just a couple of notes on the academic freedom policy. First, we made sure that it lined up with the 1940 principles of academic freedom, which are still considered the current guidelines today. Second, we removed a comment about reprisal under aspects of academic freedom that the faculty hold, because that is covered in another policy and not appropriate here. We flipped the order, and then finally, we cleaned up the language at the bottom on societal practices or societal standards, as that is not considered good legal language anymore. Instead, we made the changes so that they're broader and have fewer unequity-minded, if you will, language in there. We also added a few references that had previously been missing. So this is the first policy that I ask you to approve.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the academic freedom policy as presented. The second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and we approve the academic freedom policy. Any discussion? Carolyn?
Ms. May?
Yes.
Mr. Brickman?
Yes.
Mr. Brumman?
Yes.
Mr. Carbier?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Dr. Metcalf?
Yes.
Dr. Parra?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey? Motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. The second policy that I'm bringing before you today is our new curriculum program development. We do have an existing policy on this that is much wordier than the one I put before you today. So we've just made it a little bit cleaner, a little bit simpler for you to, for folks to read. The new improvement that we have added is the last sentence, which says new programs should lead to a living wage and should promote equity. These are two things that we feel very strongly about, and we feel it's important to highlight these in our policies. So this is the second one that I am asking for.
Can I,
Yes.
so the definition for living wage, is that written anywhere?
Oh, that's a good question. Shauna Chambers in our HR department does keep up with living wages for Asheville. As you know, we are a living wage certified organization. And so we tend to use that information and the information from our our institutional research division.
Because we're in different counties. Is that,
That is a very good point. You know what? At this point, I would like to withdraw that policy, and I will bring it back to you next month. Thank you for that. That's an excellent point. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Wilmoth, I believe you're up again.
Starting on page 17 in your packet, there is a background related to our Connect NC bond projects and the budgets that are there for $4.5 million, most of which at this point has been spent over the past 5 years. We're coming down to the last, or maybe the last project at this point, and that is the Coleman Gym floor project. And we've gone back and forth on this. We had a higher budget earlier last year, and we went down when we realized we had to take the kitchen renovation out of this. However, we subsequently discovered that the floor, the gym floor, contains hazardous material that needs to be taken care of properly. And so as a result of that, we're having to add back in the cost of abatement and mitigation and air quality into this project. So it necessitates an increase of at least $180,000 at this point. So that project was previously approved at $250,000 and we'll increase it to $430,000. That will pretty much eliminate the funds that we have available. Then we'll come back and revisit that as we close out some of the other projects with the final expense figures. So the resolution or action that we're asking is that you approve the amendment to the Connect NC bond referendum projects effective today, increasing the Coleman gym floor project by $180,000. Any questions?
What specifically, Dr. Will this $180,000 be spent for?
Okay,
specifically?
yes, specifically.
Rather than just for-
There's two or three elements. One is the actual removal of the hazardous material that's there. And that will have to be done in such a way that the building is sealed off. There will be error monitoring that will go on during that process, before and after. And then thirdly, originally we did not realize that we would have to remove the floor. We weren't sure what we were going to do, what technology we were going to use. And so now that we're going to have to remove the floor entirely, we have to move the bleachers. And the bleachers are on both sides of the wall. They'll have to be taken off the walls, moved over to the other side, one at a time, or one side at a time. And then they'll do half the floor and then move the bleachers back, and move the other bleachers, move over. So there's a lot of staging, setting up, and moving about. So it's expensive. But I think in the long term, given the fact that we have these funds, it's a good investment. That floor has lasted 30 years, and we would expect the new floors to last just as long.
Thank you.
Is it asbestos?
It's not asbestos, it is mercury. Yeah.
Any other further questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve. I move we approve them. Second. Roll call, Carol.
Ms. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Brickman?
Yes.
Mr. Brumman?
Yes.
Cartier?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Dr. Metcalf?
Yes.
Dr. Barrow?
Yes.
And Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item E on your resolution action items is the proposed schedule of student fees for the 2021-22 academic year. And these fees will be effective July 1st. The schedule of fees start on page 21 with an overview of the global fees that are charged to most students across the board. There are some exceptions. And then after that, there's course-related fees for instructional supplies, cover those expenses for a period of courses throughout the college. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Wilbon regarding student fees?
Talk a little bit about what the fees are. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
The fees. Yep. So I'm trying to remove my own biases about this. But about 10 years ago, when the General Assembly began to cut back on state community college funding, they did open up the door to where even though the state funds for consumables and this and that were being decreased or leveled off, the colleges were enabled to charge fees in order to purchase those outside of the state funds and seek reimbursement essentially through student fees. So the majority of those are fees that are perhaps for materials that would be used in cosmetology or whatever else. The global fees on the first page are fees, most of which are approved by the system board. And for example, for the CATS fee has to do with policing, security on campus, and there's student activities fees that are used to support student activities and support services, and then technology fees as well. So again, the state, the legislature more or less gave the community colleges the right to charge those with some restrictions to set the fees a maximum. So we abide by those maximums, but we do use those to essentially supplement the state fees that we have in place.
Can our students access foundation funds to help pay for these fees if they do not have a way to pay for them themselves?
Yeah, the fees in general are factored into the cost of attendance. So if they need additional fees beyond what they might get through Pell or other sources, the foundation fees or foundation scholarships can be used for that purpose.
Thank you.
Did you address the concern that Mr. Queen had with the student activity fee?
We have not addressed that. We've not made any changes. What prompted What prompted that initially was the fact that we were suffering a major decline in the student activity fees due to the fact that they were not charged to 100% online students. And at that time, approximately 80% of our students were 100% online. And so the revenue number had dropped dramatically. And the concern that we had when we brought forth those proposals to charge more students at the time was really a function of being able to preserve some positions that actually were being funded by those. Now, subsequent to that, we have received HERF funds or CARES funds from the federal government that can now be used to replace lost revenues. And so we're going to be able to hold ourselves harmless in the short term. In the long term, we're assuming that we're going to go back to more full-time in-person instruction, and our concerns about the decline of that revenue will no longer be relevant. Now, his concern specifically, I know what you're thinking, was that we were charging flat fees. But the counter argument to that is that if a student needs help, it doesn't matter if they're taking 1 hour or 12 hours or 16 hours, they need help. And those supportive services are provided to all of those students, whether or not they're actually paying the fees or not. So it's somewhat of a, it's not necessarily an equity issue, but the amount of the fees are so minuscule compared to what they're paying at other colleges that we feel as if we need to continue to maintain the revenue the way it's been in the past in order to continue to provide those services and the people those services. Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to adopt our fee schedule. Second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Carol?
Ms. Zhang?
Yes.
Mr. Rickman?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Javier?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Dr. Metcalf? Dr. Farr?
Yes.
Ms. Zhang?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Once again, it's my pleasure to be your president, and I thank my lucky stars every day that I get to come here and work with these fine people. You've seen the great work that our leadership team has done, and I'm very, very proud of the work that they have accomplished. I will tell you, Beth brought forth a couple of policies this afternoon. Last year, well, I guess it was back in the fall. We need to take a look at our language of our policies. And Dr. Stewart said, I'll do it. I'll take care of my department, my division. Don't worry about it. We can knock this out in a year. The more we dug into the language of our policies, the more we realized that equity and inclusion really was not a part of that. So I applaud her efforts in leading a great team to making sure that what we do present is just the best of work. And I have told her, don't rush. I'd rather do it right than do it fast. So Beth, in front of God and all these witnesses, thank you and your team for the work that they're doing and will continue to do. Many of you have seen my weekly updates. I'm not going to read all of those, but I will bring some of the highlights of what we've done this last month. One of the important organizations we're working with is Dogwood Health Trust. They're excited about being a part of the community. They're excited about the work that they can do with and through the community colleges. So we expect a long-term relationship with the Health Trust. I've met with Dr. Mims and some of her staff twice in the last month. Amanda and I met with her just last week, talking about the ways that our two organizations can work together to further and support the people of Buncombe and Madison counties. We've also talked with Dr. Bill Setterberg. I'm sure many of you know Dr. Bill, with his work at the foundation. he is laser focused on the broadband initiative, and we all know that broadband is vital to this part of the state, rural America. We want to be at the table to have those conversations to support our students in securing broadband for their education. The presidents have met, Western presidents, the community colleges. You can guess what's on our mind. COVID is on our mind, making sure that our campuses are as safe as they can be. Getting students back to the classroom is on our mind, and we talk an awful lot about that. How can we bring them back safely? President Biden tells us that we can count on everybody having access to the vaccine by early to midsummer. We're counting on that. We hope to bring our students back in the fall. We are also discussing our legislative agenda. So if you have a chance to meet with a state house or Senate representative, please encourage them to support the community colleges in every way we ask. The main thing, salaries, which have just been falling further and further behind. That's major. Hold harmless. We got a report last week. Every community college in North Carolina has lost enrollment except for one. And for the life of me, we're not real sure why. That one, you would never guess it, and I'm not going to ask you to guess. James Sprunt Community College, I think they're at Kenansville, North Carolina, out in the middle of nowhere. A lot of pig farms in James Sprunt area. We don't know why they went up. Everybody else was down. We want the General Assembly to make sure we understand that they understand we need their support in getting back in action. And we believe that we're getting support from what we understand we are. Making an effort to visit our satellite campuses, been up to Madison County, been our South Campus, been up to Woodfin, talking with those folks and the people that support those programs. Speaking of facilities, I had an unusual request. The Mexican consulate is on our campus working with some citizenship paperwork, and we're happy to be a partner in those efforts. They only want some classroom space for about 2 weeks, I think. Clint Gorman's behind it. So if Clint's behind it, I'm sure it's solid. One of the things that we're talking a lot with, and Dirk and I spend an awful lot of time talking with the county manager, county commission. We are very interested in their support of our INCA campus. We're going to talk with them. That's in a week or two, isn't it? Tomorrow. Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow, they're going to tour the INCA campus. We'll be making a presentation to the county commission that you have seen last month about supporting and really taking a good, hard look at that facility and how we can build that facility, and excited about that. I will tell you, if you haven't seen EdNC, it's a micro journalism business, I guess. They're journalists that are laser focused on education, and they have taken a particular interest in community college education over the last 2 or 3 years. One of their writers, a fellow named Nation Hahn, is going to spend an awful lot of time in Asheville in the coming year. He has already interviewed many of our faculty and staff and students, and he will be back for more. That's giving us an awful lot of exposure that we wouldn't otherwise get. We're happy to have him on campus. Have also talked with all 3 of the school superintendents, planning for the fall. They're excited about getting their students back on campus. We're excited about seeing their students. We're excited about the work we can do with them as well. And then never far from conversations, Pratt & Whitney. You're going to hear from Mr. Kimmery in a minute. We are continuing to work with them, not only on the facility, but more importantly, the programming to get people to work. Had an interesting conversation with a group of concerned citizens. And I asked, does your group have a name? No, we don't. We're just concerned citizens. How can we get folks exposed to, ready for, and prepared to go to work for Pratt & Whitney? Those are the kind of conversations that are real exciting because, as you know, you've seen the numbers, that can be transformational for our citizens who are below the poverty line. So those are all really exciting conversations to have. I will tell you, and I asked if I could speak very quickly. Mr. Queen is not here. He told me to let you know that he is battling a smidge of a health concern. He's very optimistic about the prognosis, but if you are of a mind to give him your thoughts and prayers, he would appreciate that. So with that, Mr. Chairman and board members, that is my presentation. Do I have any questions? Thank you.
And it's after. She comes after.
After. First one, it's first on the list. It's all right. It's been a long day.
Ed, are you ready? There she is.
Yes, I'm ready. Hello. Thank you. Just really quickly, I want to echo the many thanks that have already been said. The longer I work at AB Tech and the more that I learn about the college, my gratitude just grows for the leadership of this group and the generosity of this group, both present and past. So thank you very much. What I wanted to talk to you about was, at the head of a learning institution, our accrediting agency asks us to reflect, for our leaders to reflect on what they're learning and how they're going about doing their business. And so what we are doing is every 2 years, continuing what we've done in the past, which is every 2 years to ask you as a group to take a board self-evaluation, which is on page 33 of your packet. You'll see the procedure there. And then a copy of the survey. And so we take a 2-year cycle for that so that we can get a read of things and then give ourselves time to actually make a change and see the impact of that change before we start the cycle again. So if you haven't already, that was included in your packet, you may have completed it on paper or with the link that Carolyn gave you. If you haven't completed it yet, I ask that you go ahead and do that today if you're present before you leave the meeting. Carolyn has copies, but the best practice is for us to have 100% participation, and that'll obviously lead to the best result. I think the last thing that I would say is that the survey is meant to be the beginning of a focused conversation. Sometimes surveys are collected and they're sort of the end of the conversation. But this is really meant to start a conversation. So thank you if you already have completed that. And if you have not yet, please do that before you head out this afternoon. Thank you. Any questions?
All right. Next item on the agenda, the appointment of the Presidential Evaluation Committee. I have asked 3 board members, Ms. Lewis, Mr. Brickman, and Dr. Metcalf to serve on that committee, and they have agreed. So our Presidential Evaluation Committee for this cycle is Dr. Metcalf, Mr. Brickman, and Ms. Lewis. Next item on the agenda is appointment of a new audit committee member. Previously, Ron Edgerton was on that committee, and of course he has resigned from the board. So I asked Ms. Ramsey to step into that spot and serve in that spot, and she has agreed. So our new audit committee member is Ms. Ramsey. The annual statement of economic interest forms are due next on the 15th. If you have not had a chance to sign, those of you who are here today, you should have a copy of it at your side. Please read and sign those statements. Staff report next.
Hello, I'm Deborah Wright. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of being formally introduced to. We realized that we had a lot of new board members, so the president suggested that we start taking turns to just share with you a little bit about what's happening in our areas. And also if there was anything new and innovative that we might get to share with you. So today we get to do both. Mr. Kevin is going to present to you a really fun exercise. The teacher in me says that I hope to see lots of hands going up to volunteer. And I believe we have two sets that we can have the first set of volunteers, and then if you hang around afterwards and really want to see it, you can check this out. So you've heard about Pratt & Whitney, but there's also on the legislative agenda that President talked about today is also a bill to purchase virtual reality equipment for our police department. We're way ahead of them because we've already got it for manufacturing, and you're going to get to see a sneak peek of that today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kevin Kimry, and I'd like to see those hands go up. We need 2 volunteers as he finishes his presentation.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for having me, Mr. Chair and Board of Trustees. Welcome to Mr. King, to the board. So I've talked before to folks who have been here a little bit longer about Pratt & Whitney and what we're doing in economic workforce development to help that company succeed in Asheville, North Carolina. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an update, and then, like Deborah said, we're gonna hopefully show you something that's kind of cool. So on the update front, we have worked to create a pipeline of qualified candidates to go to work at Pratt & Whitney when they start hiring, hopefully this fall. That's what their schedule says right now. So we have 5 other regional community colleges participating in this pipeline idea, where Pratt & Whitney has endorsed classes that we have, like fundamentals of machining and certified production technician. So it's kind of the things that follow some of the things that they're going to be looking at when they hire people. So we're running those classes now, as are these other community colleges, and those are, if I can remember them all, Western Piedmont, so we go that far out, McDowell Tech, Mayland, Haywood, and Blue Ridge. I got them. So they're offering different things depending on what they just happen to offer at their colleges, but they're all very similar to what we offer. So completers of these programs between now and the time that Pratt & Whitney starts hiring are guaranteed an interview. They're not guaranteed a job, but they're guaranteed an interview. So that's really exciting. You know, we all know COVID's been going on, so we've had to adjust how we conduct our classes. So we started out a little bit slow in January with fundamentals of machining. We had about, I think, 6 people in that. We just started a new class where we have 9, and we have a day and a night class scheduled for May. So as things begin to open up, we're seeing more and more people sign up. And so we're looking right now like we might have both of those classes. We also have a certified production technician class. That's one of the certified classes. We run those every couple of weeks. We stagger those. We have 2 instructors now. And so we've had, this is all since January, we've had 12 people complete that certification. And right now we have 12 people working on a certification. So that just keeps churning people out. So that's all really exciting. On the customized training program project front, we are currently in completing needs analysis phase, where we're trying to understand what kind of training Pratt is going to need. We've been developing outlines for pre-hire assessment, for pre-hire training, and for the post-hire training, on the job training that they'll be doing and that we'll be participating in. We'll be submitting the training project plan to the state probably within the month of April. This plan will include funding for pre and post-hire training, salaries for 2 full-time instructors to work just on this project, company reimbursement for on-the-job training, and travel to go to their other places and bring knowledge back to Asheville. Original equipment manufacturing training, online training, some equipment is in there, some media development to help us with orientation videos and recruiting videos for them, and virtual reality training, which I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. So that's really exciting. Mountain Area Workforce Development Board has committed funding for marketing and recruiting. So we'll be tapping into that very soon to start some of those efforts off. They've also gotten approval from the state to participate in funding the first year of this virtual reality training that I'm about to show you. So that's a real good partnership. Training facility, Dr. Gossett just mentioned a little while ago, we're still working on that. We're at a little bit of a lull right now because Pratt & Whitney is waiting on Biltmore Farms to provide the deed. And then actually Dr. Gossett and I talked about this today, that we're not really sure how everything's going to work for the deed for us. But I think Chris's office is going to help us figure all that stuff. So we have an architect picked out through interviews with the county and us, and they're CPL architects out in Charlotte. They've done other higher ed facilities throughout the state, throughout the United States. So we're excited about that. All right, so virtual reality training is the stuff that you've probably seen on TV. If any of you happen to be gamers, then you may have seen it, but I'm guessing not, because people of our age group maybe don't do that quite so much. I don't know. But kids and grandkids might understand what it's all about. So this has been real exciting for us. It's basically where you wear a headset and you connect to the internet, and there is curriculum inside of the internet, but it's transmitted to your headset. So this came to us from kind of the higher pieces of state community college and customized training folks brought it to us and said, hey, this is really cool. We just saw it. Let's get together and talk about it. So we did, and did a few demos, and everything looked really neat. The fact that we had backing at a state level encouraged us, because sometimes when we find these kinds of things on our own and we try to take it to the state, they're like, I don't know, it's pretty costly or whatever. So the fact that they brought it to us, we were really encouraged. When the company that we're working with sent some units for us to demo, and I had some of my staff in there, and we tried it on and we started doing it. And the guy who was helping us virtually get through everything, I just had to stop him, and I said, this is cool as hell. And he started laughing, and we all started laughing, but it really is. And I think Deborah might have said something fairly, she might have left the extra for the back. But anyway, so we find it to be very engaging. Hopefully you'll get to see how it works a little bit, and I do have some units that you can try on if you want to do that. But what we're going to attempt to do is there's nothing that I can plug into this to plug into a projector, so we have to cast it to a projector. I'm going to very quickly tell you that I started working with Sterling up here last week to do this, and we couldn't figure it out. And then we engaged Chris Harshman in IT, and Chris couldn't figure it out. And then we finally got to a point where it just happened and we figured out a way to do it. Started again today, testing, and we had issues today. So you see all this stuff that we did. So having said that, it's going to take me just a second to get everything hooked up and work with Sterling to get that done. So while that's happening, talk amongst yourselves. I would, you'll do it.
We need our 2 volunteers.
Not just yet, we will in just a second. So if you're of this kind of nature, I would appreciate some prayers to see if this works, and if not, just cross your fingers. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. All right, so you got your phone? Okay.
Yeah, the phone's actually on.
Is it up here?
And they let me in.
Oh, it's here?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's on. Tell me when you're ready for me to switch.
Okay.
So while they're doing the technical stuff, I will tell you, I went by on Thursday to get a sneak preview. And we were in one of the rooms, unfortunately, with the big glass windows in front of it. And decided to put the headsets on. He was showing me, walking me through. And the one that I did was putting out a fire, learning how to use a fire extinguisher. But we didn't stop to think how we looked for anybody walking past that glass window. Because we were in there doing this stuff, and anybody walking by would have been like, okay, they've lost it here. So, but it's very real looking, but it's even more hysterical for those watching the people who are doing it. If you've ever been in the mall where they're on like the roller coasters, and they're just sitting in the seat, but you can see them and everybody's screaming. I hate that.
Deborah, I'm glad you brought up the fire training. First time I had fire extinguisher training, the instructor had a big pan and he would have to put fuel in it, light it, then we'd have to set it out, then he'd have to refuel it, relight it. Second time, he had something about the size of a television, but it was still cumbersome to carry around. And we were able to get our certification with that. Now, we'll be able to certify those folks with these goggles.
Yeah.
So it's more efficient, more effective, and it's less wear and tear on the equipment, a whole lot less wear and tear on our instructors carrying things to and from the classroom. So we're real excited about this. And it looks like he's about ready.
So if I start to hit something, then you'll tell me, okay?
If you're ready for me to cross.
No, not yet.
All right.
And that way, there's nothing in there. Why you need that area, because you forget where you are.
Okay, ready.
All right.
There you go.
Oh, wow.
So you're in the room that I am in right now. Sterling, do you have sound?
We're not hearing the sound right now. Are you?
Yeah, I have it turned on.
I think we should. I haven't done anything to change it.
let's see when it starts talking, then let's see what happens. Do you have anything?
Yeah,
It worked earlier.
yeah, I know.
Safety features and procedures to minimize accidents. These safety features and processes might be different depending on where you work, but we'll go over some basics to start you out. Accidents do happen with robot arms, and a hard hat is the minimum piece of PPE you should be wearing. This can change depending on the workplace or the type of work the robot is doing. Grab the hard hat by using the grip on your controller. Now put on the hard hat. Okay, great. Most accidents with robots are actually caused by human error. This can mean failing to disable the robot before entering the work cell or an unauthorized action when working with it. Entering a work cell without the proper expertise is also a big risk. Always ask your supervisor if you're unsure or uncomfortable around a robot. This is a safety cage. It protects workers from being too close to the robot if they haven't taken the proper procedures first. To enter the cage, you need to use the HMI, or human machine interface. You'll use this to enter if you have any routine or repetitive work to do. If the work is more involved, you'll have to lock out and tag out one or more of the energy sources going to the robot. The light on the HMI is green right now. That means the robot is moving, the gate is locked, and it's not safe to enter. The red button on the right is the e-stop button. If there's an emergency, pressing this will stop all the robots on the line. The green button sends a request to enter. If it's safe to go in, the gate will unlock. Go ahead and press the request to enter button, and let's see what happens. Okay, the robot has stopped, the light is red, and it's safe to go in. Another layer of safety is the use of a teach
I'm going to go through this for a few more
teach
minutes.
method is used to control and program a robot, but it also has safeguards built into it. Go ahead and pick up the teach pendant using the grip on your controller. The teach pendant has an e-stop on it in case of emergencies. It's the big red button right here. There are many other controls on a teach pendant, but we're just going to focus on the e-stop and one more. Now, flip the teach pendant over. Underneath your hand is what's called a dead man switch. This needs to be held down whenever you're working in the robot cell, and the robot will turn off if you let it go. Normally, you'd carry this in with you, but I'll hang on to it for now. Before we open the gate, notice that there's an e-stop right below it, too. Touch the gate latch with your controller to open the gate. Here we are in front of the robot arm. I've mentioned the work cell already, which is the area where the robot functions. But what is the work envelope? Well, it's the maximum area a robot can reach in all directions. Let's have a look. There are devices around you that safeguard you even more from the work envelope. See these two posts here? They create a light curtain. If you cross through this light curtain, the robot will stop because you got too close. Let's test it out. Touch anywhere between those two posts. Looks like the light curtain is working. There are other types of light curtains too, and even pressure sensing mats to keep you safe when you're in the work cell. The work envelope is limited in size because there are adjustable blocks on the robot arm that keep it from moving too far. If the work a robot arm is doing only requires.
Ta-da! Pretty cool, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So, a little bit more about this company. Let me turn this off. So, this company has developed content in manufacturing, automotive, mechatronics, hospitality, which is really cool. So it's all stuff, that we do here at AV Tech. So The plan right now is to buy the headsets, or not buy, you basically a lease, so you do it on a yearly basis. And you can get the full library if you want to do that. So we're clearly going to use this technology in the Pratt & Whitney project in manufacturing. But what we would like to do is when we open the new facility is we'd like to have that available, that technology available for other things that we do. Beth is actually coming over in the next week or two to look at it. She wants to see the hospitality curriculum. So we have all kinds of possibilities with it. The other thing that is really interesting with Pratt & Whitney is we are asking the state for money to be able to customize simulations to their processes. So that means that we can use a lot of this content that's already in the library to do things like safety training and you know, things that you may have seen me go through there. But they're also going to have equipment in their facility, and in our training facility, there may be one piece of equipment that costs $1 million, and the one right next to it is $1 million. So clearly, if you're trying to teach people how to use that stuff and it crashes, it can be a $60,000 service call to get that thing fixed. So they're really interested because we're going to be able to do, hopefully, these simulations on their equipment. So when people come in to train specifically, they've gotten through all the pre-hire stuff and gotten hired, then the hope is that we'll be able to use this virtual reality trainers to go through specific processes that are unique to Pratt & Whitney. And it looks like, from a state perspective, it looks like we're going to get that funding. So I'm excited about that. And I think that's all I had. So questions, thoughts? Yes.
Super exciting. I guess those Oculus headsets, is that correct?
They are not that brand. I think they're Quest, I believe is the
Oculus
brand.
is, yeah, Quest, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I have one of those. And, the safety issues on privacy, because it's owned by Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook. I'm not sure how that works within the school environment, just a thought, because you have to log in using a Facebook account.
Yes.
And all those things, and, just privacy of information and all that stuff,
Yeah. We'll be able to, with these, we'll be able to do unique logins, and the company will be able to specifically, create those for us.
I'm in hospitality, and I think having something like this on site, if I'm able to purchase them for my staff, and they can virtually log in and do classes,
yeah.
They don't have to leave, or if there's transportation issues or whatnot. I think if companies have the option of purchasing them or leasing them to do training on site, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
The possibilities there.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I will, if anybody wants to try one on, I'll hang around. We've got some wipes. We can wipe down the stuff, and I'll be happy to show you how it works. Thank you.
And item number 6 is went into closed session. I will need somebody to make the motion to go into closed session.
I hereby move that the trustees enter into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A, 1 and 3, in order to discuss confidential personnel matters pursuant to General Statute 115D-27-29, and to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege.
Second. Moved and seconded that we go into closed session as stated.
Ms. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yes.
Mr. Bowman?
Sorry, yes.
Barbier,
Yes.
King, Lewis, Dr. Metcalf,
Yes.
Dr. Morrow,
Yes.
Ms. Reagan.
Yes.
I think it's a great use of it.
Gotcha. All right, this is Dirk Wilmoth, reporting on the first closed session item. Pensions spiking report. The state retirement system, the General Assembly. Can you hear me? Oh, thank you. How about that? The General Assembly several years ago mandated that the retirement system notify employers, state employers, whenever an employee comes onto their payroll, who, if they were to suddenly retire in the near future, there would be underfunding of their pension funds with the state of North Carolina. And so this is actually called an anti-spiking law. And part of the requirement is that the information that the state retirement program gives to the CFO needs to be conveyed regularly to the Board of Trustees. We can do that in a closed session, so that's what I'm about to do. And you have a copy of a letter that we received back in actually February. And it goes through the justification for the pension spiking report. And then the last page lists the names of the employees who are potentially affected by this law. And what it means is that the last employer of record, if they were to retire, would have to